honorable members of parliament, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Ndakubiranga Suluzungu atirandikale ndakutamu olusoka kubanga ndi mwana muzaalibwa kuno. On occasions like this one, the role of the architect is basically to elaborate why he did what he did. But you know, architects are queer people. Why queer? Sometimes we speak through controversy. And why I'm saying controversy, probably that is why architects choose to communicate through drawings and not through words. Why controversies? I must honestly say that father was a man who chose to utilize controversies to bring good out of the controversy. He lived ahead of his time, at a time when putting on miniskirts was looked at as a controversy in society. My father looked at it as an element that can help someone stand confident in public. And that's why many of our girls are confident in public and they are excelling. He also looked at things like kneeling and decided that even gentlemen should kneel for the ladies. And that's why so many times he told us to do that. We called it courtesy. Courtesy. Yes. Because we are in a society where when a lady comes and kneels down for you and greets you, you just greet and go away. But father said no, there should be a bit of reciprocity. Those are some of the controversies that father looked at and turned them around. He's a person who chose the rejects from elsewhere and turned them around. So he's a person who lived ahead of his time. And because of that, many times when we think about a mausoleum, what comes to mind is something that looks more religious in a way, something that looks Romanesque. In architecture, there is a language. There are languages that came through different times. It's what we call Romanesque architecture. There is Islamic architecture. That's why many times in mausoleums you see elements like domes, elements like arches, and so on. Singa mubona mausoleum erigale budumbula eya Chamazinga, you'll see a certain characteristic, and that is the characteristic that you can see elsewhere. Father Nero Mkuluwangajire Yakoba he had a rough time convincing to bring Kulitano father. And there is a certain monument in India called Taj Mahal. I'm sure many of them have heard about it. And normally when we are talking about mausoleum, now back to the story. Why this kind of building? You can see this building defies the norm in as far as mausoleums are concerned. You are not going to see arches there. You are not going to see a dome there. And yet, under normal circumstances, someone would have a sort of dome. And that is because the element of father, as I said, is a person who used to take controversies and turn them around. So the language that we wanted to speak is something that is contemporary, and to show the public that you can turn around anything into something else for the glory of God. So that's why this building is a little bit, a few miles away from the architecture of mausoleums. Now, in coming up with this building, we faced a number of problems. Now, unfortunately, there's a saying that doctors are lucky, they bury their mistakes. But unfortunately for us architects, we live without mistakes. And it becomes even grave if mistakes are caused by forces that are beyond your control. And this building that is in front of us was supposed to be much smaller than what it is. And the reason being, when I was conceiving this building, I was cognizant of the ecclesia that is in front of us. I did not want this building to compete with ecclesia. But at the same time, I wanted it to speak a language and communicate the fact that other tribes but unfortunately, in fact, before I talk about that, I came up with about 3 designs, and they were conveyed to Father Zach Alimula by Maureen. She's also a controversial girl. Remember, Muntunga, Vamutifara, Muntunga Mulam, Wamule Televiparani, Muna, Magumbi, Ukabeka, to Maureen Siakara. But Father received it well and chose this design in particular. Yemwene yakoba atino nichenenda. At least while I'm trying to convey a bit of controversy, being a man ahead of his time, he accepted. Now, when we had a meeting, and I told my colleagues that, look, you guys, if we are to have this building the way it's supposed to be, we should construct the foundations of the building at the same time as the Kiriku Kuzimba Magombe. And that is because the building was smaller. As I said, I didn't want it to compete with the chapel. And what Atikolango Kuzimba Magombe, you are likely to disorganize what is down there. But I was overruled in that meeting. And that is the first mistake that occasioned what we are seeing here. It came out that the levels were wrong. The reason why I'm saying this is because I've had a number of questions, people asking me why and why and why. Yeah? The levels were wrong, and that's why when you go inside there, you will see the actual grave, the bits of mud. Under normal circumstances, it should have been on top. Yeah? So that was another mistake, which unfortunately I have to live with as an architect. But it was occasioned by forces beyond my control. Round it up, the reason why we have colors like white and so on is because, you know, Namasakari was basically red and white. And if you look at this building, it's not very far away from the emblem. Namasakari College, those sharp edges and so on. And the reason why it's rising from nowhere, from behind to the front, is basically because I see other tribes, we like calling him Ogumbe. Someone who turns around something from small to big. Thank you for listening.